Welcome to Keeping Children Safe with Active Supervision. Keeping children safe with active supervision. Everybody has a role in keeping children safe. Today's learning objectives are recognizing that adult supervision is the most effective way to keep children safe and prevent injuries. You will be able to describe the 6 active supervision strategies, and you will be able to identify ways to plan for, implement, and monitor active supervision strategies. Today, you will recognize that adult supervision is the most effective way to keep children safe and prevent injuries. You will describe the 6 active supervision strategies, and you will identify ways to plan for, implement, and monitor active supervision strategies. According to the Head Start Program Performance Standards 1302.90, under personnel policies, a program must ensure that all staff, consultants, contractors, and volunteers abide by the program standards of conduct that ensure no child is left alone or unsupervised by staff, consultants, contractors, or volunteers while under their care. Active supervision, the 6 strategies. The 6 strategies of active supervision are 1. Setting up the environment. 2. Position adults. 3. Scan and count. 4. Listen. 5. Anticipate children's behavior. And 6. Engage and redirect. I will be going over all of these strategies so that we can discuss the implementation of all of these. The first strategy in active supervision is to set up the environment. Make sure that you have unobstructed sight lines, that when you're standing or sitting in your classroom, you have a full view of where your kids are. Want to make sure that you're using child-sized furniture. Make sure that the furniture is safe and not broken and is clean and sanitized daily. Also, you want to make sure that your room is free of clutter. Make sure that you don't have anything on top of your shelves, cabinets, anything that could fall and hurt a child needs to be taken care of as soon as possible. You want to make sure that your pathways are clear. You make sure that your pathways are not long enough that it encourages children to run. Use your furniture strategically when you set up your classroom, but please make sure that the pathways to and from your door are as clear as possible in case you ever have to evacuate your classroom. Your second strategy in active supervision is the position of your adults. You want to make sure that you can see and hear all your children. You want to stay within easy reach, especially if you have children who exhibit challenging behaviors and you will have to intervene in a situation. Make sure that you have an adult who is constantly monitoring and roaming around the room, touching base with the kids as they're doing their activities. Also, attend to children who may need additional support. If you have observed your kids for a few weeks and you're getting to know your children, you will know exactly who needs that additional support. So please make sure that you have a staff member who is aware of this and will be made available to provide that additional support. When you're setting up your classroom, when you're setting up your environment, you should be using zoning. Break up your classroom into 1 or 2 areas. If you have 2 adults, then you would split your classroom in half. If you have 3 adults, then you would zone it into 3 different zones and assign a person, a staff member, which zone they would be responsible for. If you're responsible for zone 1, your TA could be responsible for zone 2. And that way you would know that these are the areas that you need to take care of. If you look at the picture prior to this one, it was just a picture of a zoned classroom. Now, if you look at the red dots on this photo, you would see in zone 1, the person is centered pretty much in the middle of that zone. In zone 2, this person has chosen to place herself between snack and sensory. And zone 3, closer to dramatic play in that kind of area. So, but if you look at all 3 dots, if you were there, you would have a clear sight of all the areas that you needed. And you would have a person in each zone that could give additional support to the children. So when you look at these things and you discuss the zoning, meet as a group. Meet you and the TA, your TA, and maybe a volunteer or a foster grandparent, somebody who's assisting you in the classroom, and decide where the best position is for each person to be. That way you have enough adults, enough backup when it comes to dealing with certain situations or situations with children who have challenging behaviors. This is important. Zoning should be done not just in the classroom, but it should actually be done outside also. If you look, this would be a playground. And notice these are 3 adults that have been given certain areas. You have one in the grass, you have one near the swings and the slide, and then you have the other one near the sandbox or near the small elevated play structure. That way you have somebody who could be watching, let's say, the children on the concrete if they're riding bikes. This person would observe and monitor what's going on there. This person could also monitor what's going on in the sandbox. Well, the other 2 staff are monitoring grass and the swing area. So discuss this amongst your staff, amongst your group, and make a decision on who gets what duty while you're out in the playground. Setting up the environment and positioning adults in an infant toddler room. Remember, with an infant toddler room, yes, we have less children, but we must make sure that we keep line of sight for our children when we're doing an activity. Now in this picture, she's feeding one child while she's watching the other one in the walker. So this works. She's positioned herself in between the cribs and she's actually facing the other child. So she can keep an eye on both children as she feeds the first child. The next strategy in active supervision is to scan and count. And by that we mean continually scan. When you are lining up your kids to go outside and you line them up in your classroom, count them. Have your TA count them. Document how many children you're taking outside with you. Have the children help you count the kids, and count frequently. And by this I mean in the middle of your children outside playing, keep track of how many kids are in your area. Have your TA do the same thing. Keep track of the kids in your area. When you line them up to come back inside, make sure that your numbers still match. If you went outside with 10 kids, you're coming in with 10 kids. And this is very important because observation of where our kids go and what our kids are doing helps keep them safe. This is CETA Head Start, and I left this in here so that you could see exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to counting. So feel free to play this and watch as they count their kids.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. How many friends do we have? 10. Yes. Okay. We are ready to go. Nice work in class. Alright. We are ready. We are safe. We are ready to go. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 10 kids. Good job, you guys. Good job. You are my line ender.
The next step to active supervision is to listen. You need to listen for specific sounds, normal sounds, the sounds of children playing, the sounds of their conversations, the sounds of their interaction. You also need to listen for absence of sounds. If it's too quiet, that's usually not normal. And strategize. Make sure that the adults in the classroom are aware of what's going on. Make sure that they need to be observant, and make sure that you know where your challenges are, where the children that need that additional support are working or playing. Be aware of what's going on in your classroom. This is one of the most important strategies, is learning to anticipate the behavior of your children. Know your children's individual interests and skills. Take the time to observe and take notes and look at what each individual child enjoys doing. What is their strength? What are their challenges? Where will they need your support? Where will they need your staff support? Recognize the challenges. Acknowledge those challenges that each child has. Use a buddy system. If you have children that are very strong with certain things and can help the other children, use that in your classroom. Pair them up. It usually helps to have somebody who can help the other child learn skills. Children who need very little supervision when it comes to activities are beneficial to your classroom. So use that if you have those kind of children. Offer support when needed. Let the child explore their environment. Let them try things on their own, but be there and support them when they need it. Offer that support. Be aware of when they might run into some issues, and make sure that you or your TA is available when they run into those type of issues. And you're going to have children that'll say, I can't. Encourage them to try. Even if the first time they try, they're doing it with your help, it's beneficial to be supportive, and then give them the autonomy to try things on their own as they get more and more confident with their own abilities. Once you've learned to anticipate their behavior, you can basically predict when things are going to get rough, when the challenge behavior will be there. You can intervene before it becomes an issue. But if you can't, and those things do happen, if you end up with a situation where you do have to actually engage and redirect, that's very important for you to do. And this is basically the last step of active supervision, is once it reaches to that point that the child needs you to engage. One of the things you really need to look at is, how do you promote the problem solving in your classroom? What kind of things are you seeing in your classroom? What challenging behaviors? Do the kids know how to use their words rather than to use actions? Have conversations with the students at your gathering time to discuss what the rules are in the classroom, how they're supposed to talk to each other, when they need to come to you and ask for help. Just review those kind of things with your kids and encourage them to problem solve. Help them problem solve. They need to learn to take turns. They need to learn to communicate. And this is the perfect time to do it. Tailor your assistance based on what the child needs. Remember, they're all individuals, and some children are going to respond to things better than other children will. So the more you get to know your kids, the more you do observations and take notes about how a child responds to certain situations, the better you're going to be as the adult in the classroom. The better you're going to be able to strategize on how you're going to handle situations. Also, you're going to be able to have these notes to discuss with your staff, with your TA, with your classroom helpers, your assistants. The better you understand, the better it's going to be. Remember, provide alternate choices when it comes to activities, when it comes to toys, when it comes to different situations in your classroom. Always have a backup plan. If something doesn't work, let's say you have something on your lesson plan and you're really trying to do this activity and the kids are just not engaging, they're just not ready to participate or really don't want to. Feel free to change the activity, to stop what you're doing and go do something different. I used to do this consistently. If my kids were not in that type of mood to learn, sometimes they needed to have some kind of physical activity. So sometimes I would stop exactly what we were doing and take them outside and let them do some fun play, and then bring them back, redirect, and go back to trying that activity again. Just because it's on your lesson plan does not mean that you cannot switch things around if you need to. Sometimes just doing that will alleviate some of the issues you might come into to have in your classroom, actually. So just be aware, engage and redirect. I want you to see if you can remember a time when a child in your program was injured or left unattended. Were there circumstances or factors that may have predicted that incident? What could you have done to prevent it? What were the child, adult, and environmental factors that contributed to what happened? These are very important questions. We can go through a whole day and have a fun day and not have any issues. But the next day, something might happen. One of our kids gets hurt. Do we sit back at the end of the day and reflect on what happened? Do we ask ourselves these three questions? I can tell you that there's times where when I'm discussing an issue with a staff member and I ask these three questions, it takes them a while to think about what happened. And then they say, wait a minute, I wasn't the only one in the area. There was another adult. Or they think about something that was left in the way that might have caused that child to get injured. It's a hard thing to sit back and reflect, but it's important for us to ask ourselves these questions, to look at the situation kind of from outside the box so that we can improve, we can make plans, and we can decide how do we prevent injuries in our classrooms. When it comes to active supervision, we really want to see the entire picture. We have to learn to predict and prevent situations that lead to injury or to unattended children. And when I'm talking about getting the picture, the whole picture, we have to look at these three major components. We have to look at the child. We have to get to know our students. We have to learn their individual interests. We need to learn how they react to certain situations, how they respond to you, and how they start building relationships and trust with the people in their classroom. And I think that's very important. Not just with the other children, but how do they build a relationship with you? We also have to look at adults. We have to look at the adults in the classroom. How do we respond in certain situations? What situations stress us out? How do we deal with those situations? How calm can we stay? Adults are not perfect, so we have to practice when it comes to dealing with tough situations. And we have to look at the environment. One of the first things we should look at the beginning of the year is setting up our environment, looking at our environment from a child's point of view, looking for the safety issues that we might run into, looking at how we set up the classroom. Have we left too much room for a child to run? Have we left toys in inappropriate places? The environment is very important. That should be the first step in active supervision, is reviewing and looking at your environment. Attention management. We're going to briefly discuss attention management. Most of us really don't look at it as attention management. We kind of go into our day and automatically function. We begin our day by greeting the kids, by starting everything in the morning, getting them organized to come in, wash their hands, and prepare for breakfast. But we really don't look at attention management as a tool that we need to use in our classroom. Attention is the ability to concentrate on observing or listening carefully. If you think about that, do we really think about how we do this? Or do we just automatically come in and start working? Think about it. Everybody struggles with maintaining attention, especially if we've come in, we're not always feeling up to par. We might not have had a good night's sleep. Maybe we're overthinking things, or we've got something else on our mind, and that makes it difficult to really concentrate and pay attention to what you are currently doing. As we call it, being present. And that's not always easy. Are there aspects of the childcare environment that make it difficult to maintain attention? Yes, there is, definitely. I would say part of that is if you have a room of 18 or 19 children, you only have one aide, and you've got children who are sick or children who are just in a bad mood, and they came into school that way, and you're trying to take care of issues with those kids, it can be difficult to maintain attention to everybody else in those situations. There's several examples that many of you may be able to give about how hard it can be in a classroom to maintain attention. I thought about not including this in this presentation, but the more I thought about it, I think it's very important that you are aware that these are the 10 actions that you need to use to create a culture of safety. One is use data to make decisions. Your program and incident data serves as an important resource to help staff evaluate children's safety. And it's important. That's why we ask you to document everything. Anytime there's an incident, we want to know what happened, where it happened, who was involved, and what were the outcomes of the situation. This is very important so that you can review this. That's why you guys were given forms to use to document. The hazard mapping stuff that was done last year is something that we will continue this year so that you can keep track of how many incidences you have in your classroom and how the kids responded to the situation and how many times did you have to intervene with these situations. So that's very important. Actively supervise. Children are never alone or unsupervised. Remember, this is something that will be looked at, especially if they come and do a review this year. Staff need to position themselves so they can observe, count, and listen at all times. 3, keep environments safe and secure. You need to create, monitor, and maintain hazard-free spaces. One of my big issues when I look into a classroom is extreme clutter. If you have way too much stuff in your classroom, it's not a good thing to have because the classroom becomes unsafe. So keep this in mind that you need to maintain a hazard-free space. Making playgrounds safe. These playgrounds need to be inspected every day. They must be well maintained, age appropriate, and you must actively supervise outdoor play when you have the children outside. Keep that in mind. Transport children safely. Those of you that are using buses, please make sure that the children are aware of the rules when it comes to riding the bus, that this is discussed in the classroom. Make sure that they know that they need to walk when they get to the bus. They're walking from the bus to the bus. Make sure that the staff that is on the bus learns to count and scan and make sure that those kids are safe. Report child abuse and neglect. That's mandatory for all staff. Be aware of changes that impact safety. Make sure that the staff is aware of any transition changes in your daily routine, both inside and outside. Okay. Model safe behaviors. It's up to the staff to model the behavior that we expect from the children. So if you model it, children tend to follow your examples. So please keep that in mind. Teach families about safety. This is stuff that needs to be discussed with your parents when you're doing workshops or training for parents. Discuss this. Anything about safety in the school, safety at home, fire safety, all that should be included. Know your children and families. Staff should plan activities with the understanding that each child developmental level and abilities and the preferences, culture, and traditions of their families are included in what we plan. Remember, this includes everything from maintaining current emergency contact information to understanding families' perceptions about safety and injury prevention. On the bottom of this is the link to the ECLAC website. So if you want a copy of this, that is where it is available. So if you want to, you can download it. If not, ask your health specialist and you can get a copy of this if you need to. Okay, we're going to discuss really quick active supervision on buses. Tips for active supervision on buses. 1, bus monitor is positioned to see and hear the children. 2, record each child boarding or exiting the bus with a name-to-face recognition. Require 2 signatures on sign-in, sign-out sheets. 2 adults scan the bus before exiting, and that's to make sure that there has not been a child left on the bus who's fallen asleep or has just not been counted on the roll call. So please make sure that your roll call list matches the children exiting the bus. Monitor bus supervision procedures on a regular basis. So somebody will be probably getting on your bus to just double check to make sure that things are going the way they're supposed to. So don't be surprised. That could possibly happen. It's happened in the past. So be aware that counting and scanning, even on the bus, is very important. We need to make sure that we keep an eye on our kids and keep them safe to and from school. The reason we discuss the scanning and counting, the scanning and counting, and the scanning and counting, you're going to hear this consistently, is because it's supposed to be a redundant system. So basically, what is a fail-safe or redundant system? It's a part that has the same function as another part and that exists so that the entire system will not fail if the main part fails. That means that you're going to count consistently during the day. You're going to observe consistently during the day. You are going to track consistently during the day. And that is so that we get into the habit of ensuring that our kids are safe, that we know where the kids are, and that a child has not separated from his or her classroom. Okay? So that this is very important. That's why we really have to do this. There's been incidences across the country where children have been left on the bus, where children have been signed out to an adult that's not even their parent or their guardian. So that's why we're going to have all these in place so that our children stay safe. Just really quick, the review of active supervision. Remember, step 1 is to set up your environment. This is to make sure that the environment is safe, that we've looked at all the aspects of the classroom, that we've looked at the furniture. Is it set up correctly? Can we see everything when we're in the classroom? Have you gotten down on your knees to make sure that everything a child can see is safe, that all the plugs have been covered, that there's no tripping hazards, there's nothing that's going to cause a child to choke themselves? Those kind of things need to be considered when we're doing active supervision. Number 2, positioning the adults. Do we know where we want our adults? What's the best place to place all the staff in a classroom? Have we taken into consideration the infant toddler classrooms? Have we looked at where the cribs are? What's the best place for the adults to station themselves when the classroom is full of children? Are we scanning and counting? Have we developed the habit of scanning and counting? And when I say scanning and counting, I'm talking out loud. If I'm visiting a center, I would like to hear 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've seen people counting, but silently. You see their fingers go, but you don't hear them out loud. I'd like to see everybody actually count out loud so that if I'm walking by your classroom, I can hear you and say, oh, great, they're doing active supervision. This to me is key because when we have a federal review, they're going to expect the same thing. They're going to expect you guys to be counting out loud and to be scanning as you're counting. Also, listening. Again, you listen for the normal sounds. You know, you listen to the kids playing. You hear to the kids having a conversation. But you're also listening for the unusual sounds or the lack of sound. If it's too quiet, that's not normal. Okay? You're also looking for unusual sounds, crying, fighting, arguing, those kind of things. And, you know, because we're not perfect, but we are asking you to try your best. So please listen. Again, anticipate children's behavior. This comes gradually. The more you get to know your children, the better you're going to be at this. At the beginning of the year, it's not easy because we've got kids who are upset, kids who are crying, kids who are still adjusting to being at school, being away from mama and daddy. So, yeah, it's going to be tough. But the more you get to know your kids, the more information you can get from the parents, the more you take notes on what you've observed with these kids, the better you're going to be. And you're going to be able to anticipate their behavior as to how they respond to certain situations. You'll know those kids that will come in the morning, and the minute something doesn't go as expected, they get upset. They'll cry or they'll get angry. you'll be able to anticipate and you'll be able to step in before this even happens, or you'll be able to assist and support them when they start feeling bad or they get upset. So anticipate children's behavior. That's very, very important to having a successful year in your classroom. Then again, engage and redirect. If you can anticipate the behavior, you can engage quickly before it gets to be a big issue and redirect their behavior. Remember, give alternate choices to activities in your classroom, things that are similar to what you actually are trying to teach, and direct them in that direction, saying, well, if you don't want to do this, then you have the alternative, we can try this. Give them a little bit of options so that they feel autonomy and they can say, well, I have a certain control of my environment. But you can do that. You can do that just by making sure that you have a backup plan. If one thing doesn't work, always have something that the child can try and do differently. So just be aware of that. This is the slide that I left, and there is the actual link to the ECLAC website, and it says keeping children safe using active supervision, and there's plenty of information on this. You can get in there and read a lot more about active supervision. Basically, what I've touched is just the tip of the iceberg. There is so much more, and we will be discussing some additional stuff with additional trainings. We're going to be following through with hazard mapping and going through that so that we continue documenting the incidences that we have in the classroom. What happened, when it happened, what area the child was in when it happened, what the teacher did, and what were the outcomes of this. We will be tracking every incident that happens in the classroom again this year. I know we weren't able to this last year because of the schedules were kind of strange and unusual, but this year we will jump back on the active supervision wagon and get it done. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask your health specialist, or you can contact me at my office, or you can call me on my cell phone. The number is 575-418-8166. Okay? Everybody have a good year.